In this episode, we talk about some of our favourite aliens from the Alien August competition and alien antiques. Apologies for the poor sound quality in this episode, it's due to unforeseen technical difficulties. Hello sci-fi fans, you are listening to the SciFi Ideas Podcast with me, Mark Ball, and joining me as usual is David Ball.
Hello!
No big introduction this time.
No, well, I was going to have to do an introduction for you if you started like bigging me up too much or something. Well, maybe we should do it to you, because you're the one that's been putting all the effort into posting all the Alien August things.
I have been very busy. Yes, we're talking about Alien August, which I would say it's an event, but it's just turned into purely a competition. Well, I was going to post lots of articles and ideas of my own, but I've been so busy. There have been so many entries to this competition.
There has been a lot. Has there been... Well, how many has there been?
At this point, 42 have been posted, and I've still got a few left to post.
Oh, wow, okay. Okay, well, we should say then that we're recording this on the very last day of August, of Alien August.
Yeah.
I don't know when this is going to be published, when this podcast will be published.
But when I've got it edited.
End of September, then?
We'll see.
Okay.
Be as quick as I can. Right.
So, are we going to talk about the aliens? Because there's a lot of them.
There is a lot of them. But let's go through what I think are some of the best.
Yeah. Okay. Cut down that list of 40 to the best few. It's so difficult to do, isn't it? Because I've been reading them, and you're comparing. Some are better than others, obviously, like they're going to be. But you're comparing things that aren't even like for like. Sometimes, someone's got a great idea someone's got a great idea of a culture, and then someone else has got a great idea for maybe a physical description of it. So people are just
the biology. I'm finding this really difficult because there are some that I really like that are kind of space opera kind of based, and like you say, you've got a culture, society that I think you could put straight into a story, and you can see how that would be used in a story. Other stuff is just a kind of a crazy idea that I think is fascinating and creative and original, and so which deserves to win more? It's very difficult.
It's tough. It's interesting, I think, that you ask people to come up with an alien, and people have such different ideas, not only of the alien itself, but how to approach what to write.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's made this really interesting. Where these things are coming from is quite interesting as well, because some of it's not just people, some of it's not just writers. I've had some from a webcomic series, which I should probably talk about before we get onto my list, because these aren't on my list, but they are very good. Is all the entry, I think there's been 5 or something, entries from the Dan's Voyage webcomic, which I'm very much looking forward to checking out because it looks very fun.
Yeah, it does, yeah. And
there have been some brilliant illustrations and ideas for interesting aliens that aren't maybe to be taken seriously, but I can see how in the context of a webcomic that's maybe slightly comedic, they're actually really interesting. I mean, there's a redneck species, for example, and they are kind of the typical
not
grey
redneck,
aliens.
grey neck.
The grey necks, that's right, yeah.
They've obviously got a sense of humour.
Yeah, and I like the idea that grey aliens are kind of common aliens, because they're common in science fiction, aren't they?
Yeah,
so they've made them kind of the common or garden, made them the rednecks.
They're just everywhere. I think that's good.
Right, let's take a look at our first alien on the list.
What list?
On my list of my short list of noteworthy entries. Okay, the first alien I want to talk about is the Cutletons. Cutletons? By Stephen Lyle Jordan.
Cutletons?
K-T-L-I-T-A-N-S. Cutletons. They're an insectoid species, so I like that the name kind of reflects how an insect might talk.
I think so. It has that right sort of feel about it anyway. Right, tell me about them.
Okay, they're an insectoid species. they're a pretty standard kind of insect species, which is a common thing in science fiction, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
What I really like...
So, well, that wasn't meant to sound sort of derogatory or anything, but it is. It's especially in games, I think, because an insect looks like an enemy. It looks evil. It looks horrible, and you sort of got the associations that it's kind of bad and you want to kill it. So I think it's an easy way to create a real baddie, real bad guy. Which is
why they're so common, yeah.
Which is why they're so common, yeah.
What's interesting about Stephen Lyle Jordan's is that he's kind of turned that on its head.
Yeah.
In fact, there's two entries that have done precisely that. They've turned the evil insect hive alien on the head and made them good guys.
Yeah.
And so these guys, so the biology and the society isn't particularly unique, but what's unique about this, he's justified their society. He's talked about how they evolved and how their society is different, and they've got a survival-based culture.
Mm-hmm.
So on their homeworld, they have a lot of predators out to get them, and their intelligence has evolved as a way to avoid being eaten. And so they started using tools as a way to make defences and make traps. And this is why they've come together as a society for that common goal, which is true of all societies, isn't it? It's why we come together, really, is for safety. But they're specialised in keeping out these predators specifically. And that's because their intelligence is based on that. That's how they've developed tool-making skills, and everything is toward that end. Even their literature, they don't have fiction, but they really enjoy reading books on survival.
Yeah, okay. There's an interesting bit that it says that they don't have any kind of art or appreciation of culture of art or anything like that. And they've got a hard time appreciating the concept beyond a way to conceptualize possible future events.
But I suppose they might consider ingenious inventions and traps to be a form of art. Or certainly get enjoyment out of them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But it also says that they have a limited conception of individuals with a very intrinsic value given to one member of their race over another. So is that the kind of play on the trope of insects being like a hive mind, that they
do or they don't have a notion of individuality?
They have a limited conception of individuals with very little intrinsic value given to one member. Little
intrinsic value, right? Yeah. So they think of everybody as being equal and worth. That's how they work together. Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like bees. They've got a hive. They've got a colony. So they're all working together.
Yeah. So they're not driven by ego like we are. Okay. Well, let's skip down the list a little bit to the zerdani by Vincent Tellez, because they're the other interesting hive species.
Oh, I can't remember this one at all. Tell me about this one.
I completely forgot about this one until today when I was looking through and reread it and thought, this is really, really good. They are a hive of large insects that live underground in hive burrows. They're not bad guys. They're quite nice. And they sometimes have a spacefaring civilization. And they sometimes share planets with humans and actually live alongside us. As miners, we've realised that they're very good at constructing these tunnels, mining resources, and so we trade with them and live with them using their skills.
A bit like dwarves in Lord of the Rings?
Yes! Yes!
Well, that makes sense, because insects, like ants, they're good at burrowing underground and making these great hives and things.
Yeah. And so this is kind of how alliances start, isn't it? And this is how symbiotic relationships evolve. As you can imagine, these colony worlds where we've let them exist underground, we have the upper ground, and we start to rely on them for all of our mineral needs.
What I quite like about this, it says that there's 4 castes, and there's the plebs, and then there's knights as well, and the knights are the fighting force. And I can sort of imagine this because...
Well, this is quite normal in these hive societies. Hymenoptera is what we call these hives, isn't it?
Yeah.
The caste system, that organisation is called Hymenoptera, isn't it?
Yes.
Which
So
you
that's also
should know about, because you invented an alien species for the Blue Dwarf role-playing game. That was
I
actually
know,
called
and
the
I'm thinking
Hive-based.
now that it's a bit too obvious, isn't it? Really, I just picked a name out of an encyclopedia that I thought sounded good, but now it seems like it's the most obvious name that I could have picked.
But that's good, because people instantly then understand what their society's about.
Yeah, of course.
But it's ants, it's bees, yeah.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about the Hymenoptera in the Zerdani species is that it's purely female. Now, normally it's purely male, isn't it, in ants, and the queen is the only female, I think.
Yeah.
The males generally don't live in the colony. They go off and do their own thing, and they kind of form their own groups who are kind of problematic. They roam around, kind of causing trouble.
Right.
In fact, he said that some of them form like pirate groups, which is, okay, looking at them more as an intelligent species here now. They have to become pirates because it's natural to them to be independent, and I suppose maybe to steal from various colonies.
Okay.
So I like the idea that they're roaming around causing trouble. You can imagine these human colonies where we're living alongside the Zerdani, and we're allies with them, but the males, they would be an enemy because they're going around wrecking stuff.
Right.
And so it's only occasionally then when a male gets older, settles down within a hive, and the queen will take him on as, I guess, as a...
Yeah, that's weird.
Take him on as a sex slave.
Ugh, okay. This sounds quite good for a story or a game or something like that, because it means that you've got these interesting aliens which they can be characters in themselves, but then you've also got an excuse for them to be baddies. And that's quite interesting.
And you've got this kind of interesting dualism. The bad guys and the good guys, they are kind of the same.
Yeah.
And obviously the females do need the males. They might be problematic, but you can't just go killing them all, because this is how they spread their genes, is by going off, wandering.
Yeah.
That ensures
so it's quite a complicated situation, isn't it, really?
Important.
Okay. Well, speaking of spreading seeds, do you want to talk about Chris Kentley's World Seed?
Yeah.
So that's completely different to everything we've said so far. It's where a seed is a planet, essentially, isn't it? And it grows into much larger, just grows and grows and grows. A planet grows like a plant would. So it's not the same as, an intelligent alien.
Well, I think this is a bioengineered thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And he said later in the article that nobody knows who first invented the planet seeds, but now they're quite widely used, and I assume multiple species use them.
Yeah.
So this starts off as some kind of quite small seed that people take and they actually genetically engineer to then put in space and grow into a certain planet, and you can engineer them to be any planet that you need.
It seems very Hitchhikers, doesn't it? The way that they
does, yeah.
They're just inventing, they're creating planets. The planet creators. What are they called? Clarty Barkfast was one of them. Oh no, it was the mice, wasn't it?
It was the mice, and he just worked for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the species, but yeah, they were mice.
Oh God, I can't remember. Someone say in the comments.
Oh, the interesting thing about this is, how do you get from a tiny seed to an enormous planet? Where does all the stuff come from? Well, the seeds actually, they harness 0-point energy and then convert the energy into matter. Matter energy conversion. High tech.
Right, okay.
Which, I like 0-point energy. It's interesting.
Isn't that, didn't they use that quite a lot in Stargate?
In Stargate Atlantis, the ZPMs, or ZPMs if you're British or Canadian, as 0-point module, harnessing 0-point energy. This is energy taken from the universe itself in some direct way, isn't it?
I don't really understand how you can just... Well, you can't invent energy. I'm pretty sure we were told that at school. You can't just... It's got to be converted from one thing to another. It's got to be converted but never created.
But 0-point energy is essentially doing that, and it's kind of a holy grail of physics. It's vacuum energy. Okay, I've just googled this. The lowest possible energy that a quantum mechanical physical system may have. Oh God.
I think Chris should get.
I'm not going to.
Chris should get extra points for doing science. Although, well, it
somebody
depends.
try and explain this in the comments in a simple way for us. It's very good hand waving. Just to be able to say 0 point energy, kind of, it's hand waving. The energy
It's
comes from somewhere.
kind of a
it's high-tech.
buzzword.
Yes.
Is that all right? Do these aliens have to? Do they have to make sense?
Well, I think it's important to be able to justify things to an extent, but of course you don't have to have all the science.
No, well, that'd be quite dull if you start listing equations.
Exactly, and that's where hand waving comes in. So long as you can point to this, it is a scientific concept. You don't need to go into the details. You can say that's how it works, and that's enough.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah, I suppose you don't really know how your car works to be able to use it, do you?
Exactly.
Right, what else we got? Kimoji.
Kimoji. Okay, yes, or Kimogi. This is an entry by Vanessa Ravencroft. This is a very popular entry. I've had a lot of people tell me that they like this one. And
really?
This is,
okay.
It's life forms that live on the surface of a neutron star.
I'm dubious.
Yes, I'm easily dubious as well.
Hang on, a neutron star, that's, isn't that incredibly dense?
It is. It's a
dense with
star.
high mass, incredibly high gravity.
Yeah.
So these people, are they short and fat?
These aren't people. They are very small. Actually, I'm not sure how big they are, but she's got a drawing of them as they kind of look like cells, but I assume they're larger than a cell on Earth.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, this looks quite sciencey.
But they are very, very simple bits. But those bits aren't an individual. Those bits make up clusters, and those clusters are the individual intelligence.
So they are like cells then?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I'm just going to find the article now.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now. So a Kimoji cluster is a spherical colony of Kimojis. Each individual Kimoji is about the size of a rice corn.
Ah.
So, are they intelligent? Well, have they got enough to them to be intelligent?
The clusters are intelligent. The individuals don't live very long, so they are like the cells of the body, but enough of them together forms an intelligent cluster. And these clusters, they don't give themselves names. They have names that are they're mathematical expressions that reflect their constant flow. Now, I'm not sure what she means by flow. I get the impression that there is some interesting science behind this, but the science hasn't been particularly well expressed in the article. Instead, she's focused on their relations with other species.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing about all the entries that Vanessa Ravencroft has sent us, they all exist in the same universe, where there's this enormous federation, essentially, the Galactic Union, which is made up of various species, and this is one of them. And can you imagine an alien like this joining the Federation in Star Trek? That would be so
no,
strange.
not really, because how would you even talk to it? Although she does say they love long discussions about such things as air, night, day, darkness, and are known to have century-long dialogues about a particular helium atom they found particularly different to any other atom.
Which is
okay,
fine.
So maybe they're not great in parties if they'll spend so long just talking about helium atoms.
Well, the Galactic Union has devised some kind of computer that can be put onto the Kimoji homeworld that they can communicate, presumably through the internet, using that computer.
Okay.
Isn't all this a bit kind of homocentric, though? That we've created these computers for them, and without us they can't express themselves, they can't venture into the galaxy.
What do you mean by homocentric? Sounds like a nightclub.
Well, I mean like Homo sapien-centric.
Yes, but I mean we have to relate things to us.
Yeah, they have no technology without us. They have no way of communicating with us without us giving them that. How would these things develop sentience? How would they
on their
develop...
own? What would they do? Well, if they can spend years just talking about helium atoms...
But why?
I mean,
why are they intelligent? Why do they need intelligence?
Yeah, what's forced them?
That I've come across with all of these really freaky aliens is why do they have an intelligence that equates to our own? How have
I suppose
they
this is
evolved
why the one
by?
that this is why Stephen Lyle Jordan's makes sense, because they've been pushed out of their comfort zone and forced to get better at
Yeah,
avoiding being killed and whatever.
avoiding predators.
It's like humans. We've evolved and adapted over time because we've been pushed to do so. It's like an arms race. The people with larger brains are more likely to survive.
Yeah, but these, I mean, they live in quite a simple environment, I assume. We don't know what they eat, but presumably it's just there. Because I mean, a neutron star surely doesn't vary much in terms of its surface and composition.
I don't know. I've never been on one, but I imagine it's a very desolate place. It says that a Komoji cluster appears to be a 50-meter ball of nuclear chemistry.
Which is a bit vague, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Shall we look at another one of Vanessa Ravencroft's?
Yeah, go on then.
Which is the shale.
Oh, are these the giant slug things?
These are the slug things. I really like these.
So they're something like the size of a car, I seem to remember it saying.
Oh, I'm not sure on the size. I haven't written that down in my notes. But
there might be another slug.
They are big sluggy things who are intelligent, who they don't have eyes, or they didn't have eyes when they were first discovered by this species called the shis, who discovered that they were very tasty and ate them and didn't realize they were intelligent at first. But this is kind of how the they call it shale, how they first learnt about the universe around them was through the shis invading and eating them. And they later joined this galactic union.
Okay.
And again, it's through us that I assume we're part of the galactic union. I don't know, but we gave them the technology to start developing a more advanced society.
Okay. And so they don't have any arms.
No, and I really like this idea. So that they had this intelligence, but they were unable to use it to actually make any kind of machines or anything.
Right.
Again, kind of begs the question, why did they have that intelligence in the first place? How did they develop it? But anyway, it doesn't matter. We now, the Galactic Union engineers some sleds for them. Cybernetic interaction and mobility sleds, they're called.
Okay,
Which I think is a wonderful idea.
So they're, floating around?
I don't know if they float or roll
driving around. So
That's
like some super fast snail.
Yeah. And then these also have, I think, like robotic arms and such to allow them to manipulate stuff.
That's quite interesting.
Cybernetic slugs.
And also these slugs get arms for the first time, these robotic arms.
Yeah.
How do they even know how to control them? Because they've had no concept of that.
Yeah, they're given these at a young age.
Okay.
And then the sleds are kind of adapted as they grow to suit their needs. So from a young age now, they learn how to manipulate things. But the ones who had this for the first time, yeah, they would have been clueless, wouldn't they? It would have been kind of a mind-blowing experience to suddenly engage with the world in this new way.
Well, just seeing someone who's got arms would make them think, what are they? Oh, that's useful.
Yeah.
Why haven't we got arms?
I'll have two of them, please.
But, yeah, like you said before, they are intelligent, but obviously are not able to make things.
Yeah, but they
in
do
the same
have
way.
a really unique ability, which is, they communicate through pheromones, because they didn't evolve with eyes and such, although another species engineered them to have eyes now. But they naturally communicate through pheromones, through chemical messages, and they have the ability to make complex molecules using a special gland. And so they are master manipulators.
That makes sense, because they're making smells.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have a kind of quite an advanced perception of these molecules. This kind of innate perception of chemistry, of minuscule chemical forms. And so that they are apparently the best chemists in the universe. And they make perfumes. It's, I think, their main industry.
Brilliant. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. And so that they're able to make basically perfumes that can influence people in certain ways. Sexual attraction is one thing, but you can imagine all the various ways that chemicals can affect people's moods and attitudes and feelings.
Yeah. That's
but
interesting.
they do have laws to prevent them abusing that power, apparently.
But you know that any story that they're going to be in, there's going to be someone, whether it's just one of them or many of them, are using it for nasty things.
Of course,
because that's what an interesting story would be like.
Yes, and that's again it's one of the things that I look for in an alien species: is how are you going to use this in a story? And straight away,
definitely
interest there. There's possibility for conflict.
I think that these are going to have some complicated way of reproducing.
They do. I was hoping you weren't going to mention
they're snails.
Oh god.
I said before off the podcast that we should do an article just about the aliens with weird reproduction things, because a lot of people focus on that as like a really key thing, how these aliens will reproduce, and it is important, isn't it? But I don't know. Sometimes it makes me think, it's a bit weird thinking about how these things
so squeamish
have sex.
about these things?
Because these creatures are hermaphrodites.
Yeah.
And snails.
That gives you the
snails and slugs. No, it's just a bit odd. If you've seen how snails and slugs actually do reproduce, there's all sorts of crazy things, like they fire sperm darts at each other or entwine themselves together and hang off a cliff or something weird like that. It's really interesting. It's all just the kind of thing that if you put that into a story, some people will be like, didn't know if we should have a sex scene this graphic.
Really? I can understand some people in like Alabama wouldn't like it, but surely that's all interesting and fine.
Why pick on Alabama? No, it's just that science fiction. Science fiction. I mean, if you're watching Star Trek, like Star Trek is, for me, it's the right bang in the middle of science fiction. It's not the really out there crazy stuff, but also it's not the complete tame space opera. It's kind of a bit of both. But if you start showing really crazy things in that, then people are like, oh no, I don't like that. Don't like that at all. The sort of naysayers who go, it's too much. And I wonder if you
closed minds in varying degrees.
Yes. Yeah, and I know that when you're providing a story, that you need to provide something that people will get, and it won't turn people off. I mean, there's obviously a market for really crazy out there science fiction where you can mention everything completely bonkers. I've forgotten where I was going with this.
You see, weird slugs would interest me in a story.
Yeah, well, I suppose it depends how you do it. Depends whether you cover it from like the biological way, or if you're trying to make it erotic.
I don't think anybody is going to try and eroticize hermaphroditic slugs on hover sleds. I'd love for them to try, but I don't think it's possible.
I don't know. You see you have a sex scene in a film or TV show, and it's all like nice and a bit sexy and stuff. You can't have that with slugs.
You can't make slugs sexy. It's impossible. And if you've ever a sex scene about slugs and you thought it was trying to be sexy, it's not the writer trying to make it sexy. There's something wrong with your mind.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Do you want to talk about another of the aliens? Can we talk about another one with weird reproduction? Can we talk about the Sibranthe by Ruth DeHaas?
Okay,
She has written about these three different aliens. No.
Well, no, it's the same species.
It's the same species. Yeah, okay. Well, do you want to explain it?
Go on, I'll explain it.
Go on then.
There are three genders, all of which are physically very different, and she's explained this in a bit of a narrative style, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I really like the way that she's done it. It's more like a scientific journal, isn't it? Kind of like in an article.
Scientist discovered them and how she discovered these differences. So they thought at first that there were 3 different species, and then they realised they are all the same. There's ones that live on the ground, ones that live in the air, ones that live in the ocean. And it turns out the ones that live on the ground, the ones she was talking to, the most common, they are the females, and then the air and water ones are the males.
Well, she also says that that's not really the case, but that's the most.
There's no male and female.
It's the easiest that we can. Yeah. It's the easiest that we can appreciate it.
So the word translates as female. It could translate as mediator. And so she observed a mating practice. The ground-dwelling females go out into a field. They attract a flying male, which picks them up in its talons or whatever. They all have a specialised limb, don't they, for sex? And then it flies over.
No, I thought
ocean.
the limb was for making music, a bit like a cricket. It rubs its legs together to make music.
Okay, yeah. So then they fly over the ocean and attract the ocean ones, which come to the surface and then attach to the ground ones, don't they? So the ground-dwelling females are in the middle. They're the mediators, yeah.
So there's there's now 3 of them flying around. It's kind of like Transformers that sort of attached to another one. It's a weird way to have sex. I do think it is. I like it,
fun.
But it is weird.
Fun, a flying threesome.
So there's one flying one picks up the ground one, then they fly over the ocean, and then the ocean one comes up, and then they're all just connected together. Yeah. And then they all press their glands together or something, and the genetic material's all passed. And who has the babies? I can't remember now. Is it the ground one?
Yes, the ground one, because they're the females.
Kind of.
Yeah. But they then have babies of all 3 gender.
I wonder if it's equal. It'll have to be, won't it?
I don't know, actually.
Will it have to be? Maybe in one litter there's 3. There's one of each. Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, that was quite interesting, and it was very well written.
It was, yeah. Right, moving on. Here's a very strange way of reproducing. The Clouds of Azani by Hannah Gibbons. This is a cloud-like alien species. Now, I think the problem with this is she hasn't actually, for me,
don't start saying about the problem.
I really like this one. I really do. But I just wish she said that they are clouds. They are vapor, and they can also they are liquid. But they can also rain and form. And that they actually reproduce through. Let me find the quote. The clouds reproduce through a cycle of precipitation, evaporation, and condensation. So they reproduce by raining.
Okay. Ooh, sounds a bit.
So they rain down into a puddle where they mingle together, and then when it evaporates, they evaporate into different new clouds, new individuals.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now the problem that I was going to say is, are these actually liquid, or are they small microscopic things that live inside the liquid? And I would like a lot more science behind this, because this could be amazingly good if there was scientific justification, because it's so creative. But I guess you can't have both. Okay. Maybe I'm asking for too much with that.
Well, I don't know. We had a fairly tight word limit, and so you can't put it all in.
That's true. That's true.
It says that they also farm by spreading pollen or seeds. Itself an enjoyable sensation. To create botanical gardens where other clouds can absorb scents, pollen, and other gases or small particles.
Yeah, they love tactile, they love feeling things. She even said that they love it when birds fly through them, and hinted that they maybe even get a little bit turned on by it.
Oh, that's a bit
because they like the feeling
unsavoury,
of stuff
isn't it?
Through them.
Oh,
this is good though. This reminds me of the Founder homeworld in Star Trek: Deep Space Nine.
Oh right, yeah, because they were a big lake, weren't they?
Yeah, but they also have that garden in which they enjoy taking on new forms.
Could a Founder from Star Trek turn into a cloud?
I don't know. Well, again, you see, the Founders are never really given a good scientific explanation, are they? So it doesn't matter.
We don't need one, though, do we? Do we need one? Doesn't matter.
No, exactly.
They turn into things.
That's proof that it doesn't matter, because they worked really well in one of the most successful science fiction series of all time.
When you say successful, I don't know if it was I don't know if it was a great financial success. I don't know.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, when you talk to people, it's not usually people's favourite.
It doesn't seem to be. It's one of my.
It's my favourite. I like it. Yeah. Anyway, let's not get carried away.
No.
They also say, thinking about the other thing about they like raining on botanical gardens. Some natural minerals or chemicals can be used to create especially powerful drugs using the cloud's acid secretions, and drug resorts are often in high demand.
Ooh.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
And also, she goes on to say, there are quasi-erotic sensations associated with pervasive droplet stroking when two clouds... Shall I read this in a more sexy way? Pervasive droplet stroking when two clouds brush against each other. But this contact is generally devoid of social bonds or connotations, as it is extremely common in day-to-day life and necessary for dialogue. So these clouds talk by like brushing against each other, but also that can be also a bit sexy.
She says earlier in the article that they communicate using a system of a tactile sign language, combined with chemical transfers to convey ideas.
Oh, so what? The cloud would change its shape into something that another one could see and understand?
I assume so.
Is that right?
Yeah.
They have little use for the local fauna beyond the gases they may leave behind, but being flown through by a bird is a favourite entertainment with younger clouds. So, hey, it's not a sexy thing.
Okay, no, maybe I was.
It's favourite entertainment by the little kids, by the little kid clouds.
Maybe there's something wrong with my brain
then. You were looking for...
Right, let's move on.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, the last alien on this list is the Calii by John Ryer. This is another one of my favourites because this is an interesting society that I can really see working in a story. You could take this and write a story about them pretty much instantly. It's very well done.
Right, okay. Cool.
This is a quadrupedal species. They can walk on the back legs and use the front legs as hands, but they prefer to be on all fours.
Mm-hmm.
They have a clan-based culture. But this is interesting. It's almost communism meets feudalism.
Right.
Their clans are kind of like, almost like a hymenoptera colony. They have queens in charge of the clans, but they don't have land borders. These clans live side by side, and they interact with each other, trade with each other.
Yeah.
The individuals, they have a lot of freedoms, but they don't have money. Money is only used by the queens and the higher ups to trade with other clans. So it's quite interesting that each clan is kind of like a communist society, but they also have money, and they don't have any sense of nationality. It's a new form of society. I've not come across this.
They must have some sense of nationality, but
well, they have a sense of belonging to the clan, but it's not. It's not a geographic thing.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but they will have their own culture. They will be their own tribe, won't they? What's the difference in a clan and a tribe?
Well, that's it. It's tribes living side by side, isn't it?
Yeah. So John says, money does exist as a concept, although it is only used when two clans are enacting trades that one cannot fulfill at the time. It's more of a promissory note than actual currency. That makes sense, doesn't it? That's basic commerce, isn't it, really?
It is, yeah. But it only exists on that kind of higher level, because on the smaller level of the individuals, I guess the clan provides for all of its members.
Do they have different roles within the society? Does it mention that?
It doesn't mention that, no.
I don't remember reading anything about that.
No.
Because I wondered if, because it's got a queen and it's got the rest of them, I wonder if the queen is the leader of just this mass of individuals, or if they have like the middle class peasants.
No, well, they have the queens as the upper class. The females make up the bulk of society, and then the males they seem to have very few rights, and they are. Well, he says that males are actually a traded commodity.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of unwanted males, and those males are pushed out of society, and they often go and live on outlying islands and form their own kind of little commune.
So they just live out there and just go, oh, nobody wants me.
Yeah. Until a young female can go to these islands and become a queen and start her own clan.
Oh.
And this is apparently quite common in that they'll either take over the island or there's a lot of floating communities.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know if they just stay on a boat or maybe start as a boat and build up. So that they don't own any land. It's a new colony with very little money, no land, so it's just kind of floating on the ocean.
Okay, yeah, because he says, due to the lack of land for the clans to settle on, some of the new clans take to the sea and form large floating cities, moving from port to port, trading the bounty of the sea for the necessities of life. These clans became the first to strike out into space.
Ah.
So they've obviously got the technology to do that.
Yes.
The nomadic lifestyle suits these space-based clans as they build fleets of ships to travel from world to world or massive stations to house other people.
Isn't that interesting? I can see that working in the story very, very well.
Yeah. Would you, if you were using it in a story, would you use these as protagonists, or would you use them as, baddies that you would meet?
I don't see them as baddies.
Right.
Yeah, maybe as an antagonist. I think as a protagonist, these would be good. I'd like to write something set in their society so that you can explore the nuances of their society.
Yeah. There's a lot there, isn't there?
And there's a lot of it that seems to make a lot of sense as well.
Yeah.
You can understand this society actually working.
Yeah. Is John still speaking to us after I insulted him in the last podcast?
He is. I don't think he was too insulted.
Right.
Well, you called him. Well, this I should say was in a mini podcast. It was cut into a separate bit. It wasn't put on YouTube. It was only on the website.
It was an interesting discussion.
It was, yeah. You called him Mr. Grumpy Pants, which is going a bit too far.
I only called him that because he was commenting on things and saying, "Oh, technically this wouldn't exist," and I did use that voice as well, which is very insulting, and I'm very sorry.
But the interesting thing that's happened since is Vanessa Ravencroft has become the one who's talking about science and who's putting down ideas for not being scientifically accurate, and she had a go at John's article for not being scientifically accurate. So she's the new Mrs. Grumpy Pants.
No, well, I think that it all kind of stems from the idea of ideas don't have to be scientifically accurate. I think. Well, I don't know. Some people have different ideas of what works in science fiction and what doesn't.
It's a big ongoing debate, isn't it? How much of a role does science need to play in science fiction?
Yeah.
And there's no right or wrong answer to this.
A lot of the aliens that we've talked about here, they might not exist, but it doesn't mean that you can't use them in a story. It doesn't mean you can't explore them because it's interesting. And what I said is that we shouldn't be closing our minds to these things. We should be opening our minds like a child does. Yeah. Now, I don't want to say exactly what I said last time, but children don't have this. They don't limit themselves. They just go, oh, that's a good idea, and then they come out with like the craziest thing that you never think of. But because we're kind of rational, we've been around a bit.
Our minds are closed to certain creative ideas.
Yeah.
I think it's really nice though that people are writing down creative ideas for the website, and then people are coming in and commenting and saying, okay, so how would this work scientifically? And so we've got the creative ideas, but then we're kind of applying a filter to them in the comments.
Yeah,
afterwards.
Yeah. As long as everyone's respectful of people's ideas, that's fine. Because I think it is nice to say, I've got this idea, would it work? And then someone else who might be better at the science would say, it probably wouldn't work, but it would work if you include this thing, and then they could change it, and then that helps someone make a really interesting story that's accurate and whatever. As long as they don't just go, no, that's wrong, it's a terrible idea, and then puts them off. I don't want that.
We've had an interesting discussion with John's article, actually, with the calii. He said that they communicate through electromagnetic waves, sort of like radio communication. And then Vanessa came along, Mrs. Grumpy Pants, and said to Mr. Grumpy Pants, I don't think this would work. The amount of power that they would need to send messages over short distances. No creature would have that power. And then we've had a discussion, we've talked about different ways this would work, and we've actually kind of worked around to it being fairly possible.
Oh, good.
Slightly plausible, at least. And it was quite interesting.
Did you use 0 point energy?
So I've been working on some role-playing resources to sell on DriveThruRPG.
Okay.
Little PDF documents with some ideas for people. And I've been working for quite a long time now on one called Alien Antiques, and it's finally finished.
Yeah, you've been doing this for ages. This sounded really interesting. I think you might have even talked about it on the podcast. No, I don't think you did.
Well, I think this is really interesting, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. I'm not sure if it's actually going to be useful to role players at all. How often do you need a list?
You are so bad at selling stuff. You are so bad. Hang on, this is 10 pages of.
There are 100 of
interesting alien antiques. Wow. Okay.
I'm quite proud of this, actually.
This is quite a good resource.
So what I thought we should do is just go through it and just pick some of the more interesting ones, because I think there's some interesting ideas that might spark some inspiration for people.
All right. I'm going to jump straight in then.
Okay.
Number 6. Antique Hoosian coins. A collection of 8 antique Hoosian coins, mounted and framed. No longer legal tender, but valuable nonetheless. Now, Hoosians...
Woosians.
You mentioned...
We've talked about Woosians before, haven't we?
Oh, we say Woosians. It's got W-H. I would say who, as in Hoosians.
Well,
Woosians.
It doesn't matter, does it? The Woosians are the ones who create a virus, naturally secrete a virus.
Yeah.
We talked about them before on the podcast. There's no real link there.
No, it's just a name, isn't it? Ancient Wixian medicine mask, a wooden mask worn by traditional witch doctors in the islands of Aeni. The mask is over... That's what you've written. The mask is over 1,000 years old and was once thought to allow the wearer to channel the gods. Ancient star map. Despite being several thousand years old and despite a small amount of stellar drift, this star map is surprisingly accurate. It is probably made by the now extinct star species and details the area around their former homeworld.
So that could start a quest for somebody, couldn't it?
It could actually, yeah.
Okay, here's one of my favourites. The Gloroxian hair chair. A chair woven from the hair of Gloroxian peasants. The certificate of authenticity states that this hair chair was commissioned by General Oromonang himself, and that it once sat in the governor's throne room in Kortang. What do you think of that? A chair made
that's
of
good.
hair.
That's amazing.
I'm thinking that's like a status symbol to say I've got lots of peasants.
Yeah. So this is useful then for role players who are playing, obviously, science fiction or fantasy. I suppose that one's not specifically science fiction, is it really?
I suppose not. No.
So they're useful kind of artifacts to get your brain going, and if you just wanted something in a campaign really quickly, if you're playing a bit of tabletop role play.
Well, what I was thinking of basically is you visit an antique shop on a space station or something. These are the wares that are available.
Yeah, okay.
For me, this has been a really good kind of brainstorming exercise, though. And it's given me a lot of ideas along the way for these weird alien species and what kind of culture would produce this antique. Unfortunately, I've forgotten most of those ideas now. But
well, in that last one you mentioned, you've mentioned an emperor of some civilization and some peasants, and so someone could just fill in the whole backstory of that.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned a planet, and you've mentioned lots of things.
Okay, here's one that might spark an idea for somebody. A Groldian power bar. Until a century ago, the Groldian species had an energy-based economy, using electricity as a currency. Batteries were commonly exchanged for goods and services. This power bar is essentially a lithium-ion battery encased in a titanium case. When charged, it would have been analogous, I can't pronounce it, to a gold bar on Earth. But the availability of cheap renewable energy sources has made it almost worthless.
That's really interesting, because
I can imagine all possible energy as a currency.
I can imagine power. Well, we charge for power now.
Yes.
Don't we? We all pay for power. It's not free. You've got to pay for it. And so I find that quite interesting, just going around with power in your pocket.
So I guess
I'll give you this
people
charge.
that have the monopoly on power, instead of channeling it in a pipe like they do, they could sell it in small units, couldn't they?
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. You could do loads with that. What about the cryogenically preserved Glargon egg? One of only 3 known eggs of the extinct Glargon, a giant reptile that once terrorized the people of Hanon 4. Olerasian measuring bells. A set of 3 500-year-old titanium bells designed to measure volumes of liquid and grain. Half a flog, 1 flog, and 2 flog sizes. Engraved with the official seal of the Olerasian Royal Measurements Authority. These could actually be real things. That could completely be a real thing.
I was thinking, the Chinese used bells to standardise measurement. I think it was the first standardised measurement in the world.
Okay.
They used bells basically as cups to scoop up rice.
Yeah.
You empty them, turn them upside down, it's a bell, and so you can tell if they're the right size by the tone that they make.
Ah, that's really interesting. Yeah. The 6-sided Metronian spice cabinet. Metronian cabinets are traditionally made with 10 sides and supported by 5 legs, but the reign of Pogal VI saw a short-lived fashion for all things hexagonal.
I've mentioned the Metronians quite a lot in this and
really?
Other lists as well, the alien foods list and such. And yeah, the Metronians are obsessed with decimals. So that is quite an unusual thing in Metronian culture.
I quite like that.
That's like the only feature of Metronians is that they're obsessed with tens. It's the only thing I know about that society.
Right, so how can people get this if they want it?
Okay, this is, hopefully by the time this podcast goes out, it should be available on DriveThruRPG.
Okay.
So go to DriveThruRPG.com or .org, and search for SciFi Ideas is the name of my store.
Okay, good.
Okay, this has been the SciFi Ideas Podcast, and this has been Alien August. Thanks for listening, and thanks to everybody who's entered the competition. Alien August might be over, but the adventure continues at sci-fi-ideas.com, so if you haven't already done so, please subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Bye!